So Bellator 294 is going to be coming up this weekend, and Bellator is actually hosting two events this weekend in Hawaii. They've got Bellator 294 and 295. I'm still recording on my laptop. At the end of the week, I will be back at home, but yeah, for now, I'm recording with the laptop, so I apologize for the low quality sort of thingy, but no, should be a pretty good event, this one. Actually, this whole Bellator sort of two series of cards will be quite good. So yeah, I'll get into predicting that in this video, and I'll do Bellator 295 tomorrow. Now, the first fight of the night is going to be Anthony Adams versus Sharaf Muradov, and if it goes the way that I think it is going to, I don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight, because what I do think is going to happen is I think Sharaf Muradov is going to take Anthony Adams down and then just control him for 3 rounds. Sharaf does have a lot of KOs on his record for someone with a style, which I wouldn't say is that exciting, because for the most part, what he kind of wants to do is just set up his takedowns with his striking, take people down, control them on the ground, and that is what I think he will do against Anthony Adams. I think Anthony Adams probably could outstrike, Sharaf in the matchup, but I do like Sharaf to get takedowns and to control the fight to a decision. Most of Tapology does agree. They've got 91% picking Sharaf. Their last fight as well, Sharaf had, was to Anatoly Tokov, who just got a title shot, and that was a long time ago. So he's only 31 years old. He's probably going to be making rapid improvements and probably will be improving that game. The odds are in the favor of Sharaf Muradov. He is a minus 240 favorite, and I believe Anthony Adams is sitting around plus 205 right now. That is on Bet Online. Now we move on to the next fight of the night, which will be Chris Lencioni taking on Blake Smith. Chris Lencioni is coming off that crazy win over Cody Law. In my opinion, I thought Cody Law won the fight, but hey, it is what it is. Chris Lencioni won as a pretty big underdog there, and it's probably the biggest win of his career. If you do go back, though, Chris Lencioni does have a loss to Don Chinese, which is a massive red flag. I am picking Chris Lencioni in the matchup. He's minus 120 as a favorite. Blake Smith you can get at about plus 100. Blake Smith spent a lot of his career at 155 pounds. He did lose his last fight to Kenley St. Louis, where he was controlled and out-wrestled. And he did have a lot of success on the feet, but Kenley St. Louis was a lot bigger than him, and it's probably half the reason why he is moving down to 145 pounds. Lencioni's a really good grappler, but he fights like an idiot. I don't really know how to describe it. That's literally the best way to describe it. The way that Chris Lencioni fights is his hands when he's fighting are below his waist most of the time, and he kind of just like leans forward and puts his face like ready to be hit. Like he just kind of fights like a showboater. He puts his hands behind his back. He talks to his opponents. It's worked for him so far, and it's just weird. Like I feel like someone like Blake Smith could knock him out, which is a little bit of concern. But I like Chris Lencioni's grappling. Like I just saw Blake Smith out grappled by Kenley St. Louis. I think Lencioni's a better pure grappler. I don't think Chris Lencioni's the best wrestler, so he may struggle to get Blake Smith to the ground. But I do think that Chris Lencioni will be able to out-grapple Blake Smith and probably win a decision, or maybe even find a submission. Like Blake Smith was put in some pretty bad positions by Kenley St. Louis. He does have good cardio, though, to Blake Smith. He's been 5 rounds before, but the problem is with Blake Smith, he did slow down quite a bit in that fight with Kenley St. Louis when he was getting taken down and grappled. So maybe if Lencioni can put some grappling on Blake Smith, maybe he could wear him down, get a late submission, but I do have him to win by decision. But I'm worried about him getting KO just by doing something dumb, because he does put his hands behind his back. He does put his hands below his waist. He's a fun fighter to watch, but if you're picking him, if you're even beating him, it'll probably be quite frustrating. But we'll move on to the next fight. Tyrell Fortune taking on Sergey Blosteny, and I am picking the underdog in this one here. I do have Tyrell Fortune to beat Sergey Blosteny. Tyrell Fortune is a wrestler and also somewhat of a grappler as well at heavyweight. You can see Tyrell Fortune, he had the rear naked choke kind of in against Daniel James, and then Daniel James came out in the second round and knocked him out. We have seen Tyrell Fortune knocked out in the first round of 4. We've seen him caught in the first round of 4. That is how Sergey will win this fight. Sergey has 7 wins by knockout, most of them in the first round as well, over pretty good competition as well. But this fight against Fernando Rodriguez Jr., which only happened about 10 months ago, Fernando Rodriguez Jr. was able to clinch up against Sergey, was even able to take Sergey down, and he's nowhere near the wrestler that Tyrell Fortune is. So what I think is going to happen in this matchup is I think Tyrell Fortune, if he doesn't get caught by Sergey, can take Sergey down, take him down and use some ground and pound, or maybe even get a submission of his own, because he did have a rear naked choke. He was going for one against Daniel James anyway. So I like Tara Fortune in the matchup to wrestle and take down Sergey. Maybe he gets a ground and pound TKO. Maybe he wins a decision at heavyweight, but I think Tara Fortune's the much better wrestler in the matchup. Sergey's a good striker, though. He's very fast on the feet. He throws body kicks, and he does have power in the hands, but I like Tara Fortune here. He's going to be the bigger heavyweight. He's going to be able to wrestle as well. He's the underdog on Tapology. He's the underdog on the odds as well. If you do look here, he is plus 130. Sergey's minus 150, but I do like Tara Fortune to be able to get the takedowns and maybe work for a submission or ground and pound TKO or grind out a decision even as well. And now we move up the card to Killer Smotter taking on Kenneth Cross, and this is a very hard fight to predict, honestly. I do like Kenneth Cross in the matchup, but it is a very, 51%, 49% confidence. Killer Smotter, in my opinion, does have a pretty big grappling advantage in this one here. Kenneth Cross, he does have decent grappling, but the problem is he does kind of tend to put himself in pretty bad positions when he is grappling, which is why he does have all three of his losses by submission. Killer Smotter is a good grappler, but he doesn't really grapple to chase a submission. He kind of, when he gets on top, he's pretty patient, and he kind of works from there, which probably is in Kenneth Cross's favor, because if Killer Smotter was a lights-out grappler, I would be a lot more scared for him in the matchup. On the feet, I think it's pretty even. Kenny Cross does have a pretty awkward sort of style. He was actually meant to be on The Ultimate Fighter Season 31 with Conor McGregor, but he's one of the three guys that got kicked off to make space for Conor McGregor's guy. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there, and I'm surprised Kenneth Cross was never picked up by the UFC just because of that, but Bellator obviously saw it as an opportunity to sign him, and I think he's going to beat Killer Smotter, but as I said, it's a 51%, 49% chance. He hasn't fought in too long. It's been about a year and he doesn't fight too often, but he is super young, so we can get away with it. He's been on Dana White's Contender Series before, beat a guy that was 10-0, and it wasn't even that padded of a record either. He actually did have some legit wins, but a lot of people are with Cross. I could not believe how little people are on Motta in this matchup here. I don't really know why no one's on Motta. Maybe it is just because Kenneth Cross is 5-0 in his last 5 and Motta is 3-2. Because Motta has a very good chance to win this fight. If he can get takedowns and he can take Kenneth Cross down, who does have pretty good takedown defense though, if Motta gets this fight to the mat, I think it could be Motta's fight to win, really. I think Motta could definitely have a lot of success in the grappling and maybe latch up a submission. Motta hasn't got a sub in a long time, but he does have the ability to grapple and does have the ability to get submissions. I think Kenneth Cross does keep the fight on the feet, and as long as the fight's on the feet, I think it's in Kenneth Cross's world, and I think that he does get it done by decision or knockout, but I'm going to go with a decision here because Motta is pretty tough. Motta is the favourite, minus 150. I totally understand why he's the favourite. It's a no-bet fight for me. Even though I am on the underdog, I think we should just stay away and just enjoy the fight and see what Kenneth Cross is about when he does make his Bellator debut. We move on to Levan Chikali taking on Michael Lombardo. I picked against Levan Chikali in his last fight. I did pick the undefeated Roman Feraldo to beat him, and Levan Chikali looked so good in that fight. There was actually a bit of a war, but Levan Chikali, he is a very good striker, and he is fast, man. He's got really good kicks. He kicks the body, he kicks the legs, he can kick the head as well. And I like him to beat Lombardo in this matchup too. For Levan Chikali, I've said it before, I want to say it again. Levan Chikali is so fast on the feet. He's such a good striker. You do go through his record. He's got so many first-round KOs to start his career. Didn't really beat the best guys in the world. But then he'd come back. He got signed to Bellator, took a step up in competition, and didn't have that much success. But he just beat Roman Feraldo in a pretty exciting fight. I think he beats Michael Lombardo. Michael Lombardo is also a bit of a striker. He can wrestle himself, but he doesn't have good takedown defense. And if Levan Chikali wants to, Levan Chikali could probably wrestle and grapple in this one too, but I do like Levan Chikali to beat Michael Lombardo, who's a tough guy. I know Chikali got a lot of KOs in his career, but now that he's stepped up in competition, he's not really finding the same finishes, so I probably will go with Levan Chikali to win a decision, but it's going to be a fun fight, because Levan Chikali is a very, very exciting fighter, and honestly, I look forward to his fights, especially since he just fought Roman Feraldo, and that was a very, very fun fight. So I do have Levan Chikali to beat Roman Feraldo here. I think he's going to be faster on the feet. I think he'll be better on the feet. Lombardo could go for takedowns if he wants to, but even then, Levan Chikali's wrestling and grappling is pretty good. And he's young. He's going to be making constant improvements. He's only 26 years old. So, I like Chikali to win this matchup. We now move on to Danny Sabatello taking on Marcus Bruno. you kind of just got to go with Danny Sabatello here. I did forget to tell you the odds. So in the last one, Shikali is minus 210. And if you do look at this fight here, you do have Danny Sabatello about minus 550. Marcus Bruno is plus 420. I like Danny Sabatello. If he wins, it's going to be by decision. Sabatello's not finishing anyone, man. I would be very surprised if Sabatello got a finish. And Bellator, I'd be very surprised if Sabatello got a finish in general. Because what he does is he wrestles and he just kind of controls his opponents on top for 3 rounds or for 5 rounds, I guess, in the case of his last fight. But Raufeon Stotts, he had a very close fight with Raufeon Stotts. And that's a very good look for someone like Danny Sabatello, who was being overlooked in that matchup a lot. But Sabatello's striking's not that good, but what he does have is really good cardio and really good wrestling, and the ability to stay on top, and also just the ability to land ground and pounds to kind of stay on top of his opponents. And I think that fighting Marcus Bruno is a step down in competition for Sabatello. Like, he just beat Leandro Higo, he just beat Jornal Lugo, and just beat Brett Johns, who's coming in from the UFC, you know what I mean? And Damon Blackche's now in the UFC, but Marcus Bruno, he come in, he beat Josh Hill, looked amazing, honestly surprised me a lot. I didn't expect him to win that fight, but I think Sabatello just takes down Marcus Bruno and controls him for 3 rounds, lands ground and pounds, wins a decision. It won't be that exciting if Sabatello does win. If Bruno wins, it probably would be because he knocks him out on the feet, but I like Sabatello to win a decision in this one here. On the feet, though, it could be dangerous with Bruno, but I think we're just going to see Sabatello take Bruno down, out-wrestle him, out-grapple him, and win a decision. So, yeah, it is interesting, though, just seeing that Marcus Bruno does train with Glover Teixeira's gym, so he might have a pretty good game plan and take some defense for this fight, but it's a big step up in competition for Bruno, and it's a step down in competition for Danny Sabatello, in my opinion. So, and now that we move up the card, you can see that Sierra McMahon is actually going to be making her Bellator debut against Arlene Blinkow. And stylistically, this is a very good matchup for Sierra McMahon. But she is 42 and a half years old. And that's what I said about her last fight with Carol Rosa in the UFC. I was like, man, like Sierra McMahon, 41 and a half years old, but she's still doing it. And I think this is a very good matchup for Sierra McMahon because Arlene Blinkow is kind of like a pure striker. She does have good takedown defense, but it's not against the same level of wrestler as Sierra McMahon, because Sierra McMahon is a very good wrestler. I believe she's a former Olympian as well. And Blinkow, you know, she is, as I said, pure striker. Her last losses are to Chris Cyborg, you know, 2 in a row, which isn't that bad. Honestly, Chris Cyborg is like one of the greatest woman fighters of all time, but in this matchup, it's just not a good fight for Arlene Blinkow. I think Sierra McMahon is going to put the wrestling on Arlene Blinkow and take her down. If Blinkow can keep the fight on the feet, I think Arlene Blinkow can win the matchup. I think she'll be the better striker against Sierra McMahon, but I just think we're going to see Sierra McMahon out-wrestle Arlene Blinkow, really test that takedown defense, which I did say is pretty good, but I think we're going to see McMahon get takedowns on Blinkow and win a decision in her Bellator debut. And it's at women's featherweight as well. So Sierra McMahon, she's moving up a weight class. She won't have to cut as much weight. Probably a good thing, honestly, because she is 42 and a half. I'm sure that weight cut wasn't getting any easier. So Arlene Blinkow's not that big either for 145. It's not like Arlene Blinkow's like 5'11". She's also 5'6". So they'll be around the same size on fight night, which should help McMahon with her wrestling. Now we move up the card in the co-main event. You've got Tim Johnson taking on Saeed Salma, and I'm just waiting on my laptop to load. Here it is. So I do think that Saeed Salma wins this matchup. Saeed Salma has he's been very close to beating some very good fighters like Davion Franklin, who's a pretty good up-and-coming heavyweight. Gokhan Sarakam as well. 8 months ago, I believe I actually picked Saeed Salma to win that matchup. But prior to that, you know, he's got a couple of KOs, one of them to broken finger against Vitaly Minakov. But I like Saeed Salma to beat Tim Johnson. Tim Johnson is 38 years old at this point. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's kind of got like a boxing heavy style, and he wrestles as well. And kind of the same sort of thing with Saeed Salma, but I would say Saeed Salma at this point is probably the better striker out of the two. So I do like Saeed Salma to beat Tim Johnson in this matchup here. I think he might even get it done by KO. And that's what everyone's picking. So I might go with Salma by KO. I think Tim Johnson, you know, is 38 years old. He's been KO'd twice in a row now to Linton Vassell, which isn't a bad loss, and Fedor Emelianenko. that happens, you know what I mean? But we do go to the odds. I did forget to say the odds of the last fight, but Sierra McMahon is minus 190 over Blinkow, which I kind of like. And honestly, I might even put McMahon in a parlay with Sharaf Muradov, which sounds pretty sketchy, and it is, but I don't really mind it too much. And then you do look at the Tim Johnson fight side. Salma is a pretty sizable favorite. He's minus 275, and Tim Johnson is plus 235. But I like Saeed Salma. I think the odds are a little bit wide. I think they're underestimating Johnson because he's still got that power. He's got the boxing, wrestling, heavy style. But I think Saeed Salma will get it done over him. Now we move on up the card. You've got Liz Carmouche versus Deanna Bennett. You've kind of just got to go Liz Carmouche here. They're both pretty old at this point in their careers. Liz Carmouche is 39 years old. Deanna Bennett is 38. And it's really happy. I'm pretty happy to see Liz Carmouche have so much success in her career now that she's the Bellator champion, because she fought for the UFC belt against Ronda Rousey all that time ago. I think what Liz Carmouche does in this matchup is just beat Deanna Bennett kind of everywhere. I think Liz Carmouche is the better striker. Deanna Bennett kind of just, she strikes and then she grapples and just kind of holds her opponents down. Like, she beat Justin Kish twice, but Justin Kish was on a pretty bad run at that point. She beat Alejandra Lara as well, who's still in Bellator as well. But I think Liz Carmouche, wherever the fight is probably better and more likely to find a finish. I don't think Liz Carmouche could knock out Deanna Bennett on the feet, but I do think Liz Carmouche could submit Deanna Bennett on the ground. And Liz Carmouche, you know, she beat Juliana Velasquez by TKO, and then she just submitted her 3 months ago. So all of a sudden, Liz Carmouche is looking really, really good. And I think that she will be able to beat Deanna Bennett. Carmouche has fought Bennett in the past. This is a rematch. And she submitted Deanna Bennett. I believe it was the last loss of Deanna Bennett's career, and it was a rear naked choke in the third round, I believe. I think there's a very good chance Liz Carmouche finds a submission again over Deanna Bennett. I think what she does is just always be a step ahead over Deanna Bennett. I think she's kind of better wherever the fight goes. I think the odds do reflect that, because Liz Carmouche is minus 350 as a pretty sizable favorite. But she's the Bellator champion. She's defending against Deanna Bennett. She's beaten Deanna Bennett before. It's a stylistically a pretty good matchup for her as well, because they both kind of have the same sort of style. But at this point, Liz Carmouche probably is the better grappler. I think Carmouche is the better striker as well. I think she finds a submission at some point in the and not in her career, in the fight. So let me know what you think of those predictions. Let me know if you think I'm an idiot. I'm pretty happy with the picks. There's a couple of very sketchy ones there. I'm picking two underdogs in a row with Tyrell Fortune and Kenneth Cross, but aside from that, I'm feeling pretty good about my picks. You know, I think it should be a pretty good card, and I will be back for Bellator 295 in the next video. So yeah, keep your eye out for that. And it should be a good weekend, you know. We've got UFC, we've got Bellator. There's a couple of other regional promotions going on as well, but Bellator and UFC combined have 3 events going on, so it should be a pretty good card. So yeah, I look forward to hearing what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one.